Welcome everyone to the lecture by Eduardo Leyva Herrera. Eduardo is here. We set up, through a generous donation by an individual, we were able to set up a residency for a printmaking artist, and the objective was to have someone from the Southern Hemisphere. In other words, not someone from Canada or the US. And I think part of the motivation overall was to sort of bring someone whose artwork reflected sort of a culture where maybe social justice and those kind of themes are a little stronger than they are here in Canada. Well, that was the intention anyway. So that was all set up in 2019, and we were just getting things ready to go, have the jury sit down to select the artist who would come. And then, I don't know, something happened in 2020 in March, and nothing was able to do anything. So in 2022, we contacted all the artists who had submitted to see if they were still interested. And all but one were interested, so we pulled together the jury, and Eduardo was selected as the artist who had come to do the residency here. That was last year, and he was reluctant to come in January. I don't know why, but but he made it here in a few weeks ago, and he's been working in the studio since then. He's originally, his wife Yeni and he are both originally from Cuba, but they're now living in Mexico for the last 9 years, 7 years. And so he is going to go through the work that how his work has evolved in 2 different phases of his career. And then he has a lot of original prints here that he'll show you after, both mezzotints and collagraphs. Collagraphs in Cuba, the way we do collagraphs in North America compared to what they do in Cuba, it's kind of like, we're like kids with sticker books, and they're like, Da Vinci's. So it's a higher level of collagraph than what we're used to here. So without any further ado, I will turn it over to Eduardo and Yeni.
Thank you for coming. And, bueno, ya Jeff me presentó muy bien. Sí, hace 7 años que vivo en México, y para mí eso fue un cambio total, ¿no? En mi vida y en mi trabajo también.
So thank you for coming. Like Jeff said before, we've been living in Mexico since 2017 but that's why we decided to separate the work into eras of stages, because it was very different for us, well, for him to work in Cuba and to create art in Cuba, and it's another completely different thing to work in Mexico. In Mexico, you can find whatever materials you like, and in Cuba, you have to create the materials. So you will see differences in the work.
Sí, esta situación en Cuba, para los que hacemos arte, es un poco compleja, ¿no? No es fácil conseguir el material para hacer obra. En Cuba existe nada más que una sola tienda, es decir, para comprar materiales en toda la ciudad, y estas tiendas no está abastecida nunca, es decir, es casi imposible conseguirlo. Pero esta situación hace que los artistas se tengan que reinventar cómo producir obra, y eso yo creo que es una de las cualidades que tiene el arte contemporáneo cubano en general, que el artista tiene que indagar en otras vías y en otros lenguajes para poder concebir su trabajo artístico, ¿no?
So we wrote a little bit here, but we want to talk about, in Cuba, about portrait and human figure. You will see those kind of works, and traditional engraving. And the context was that even today, there's just one store for buying art materials in the capital. So you don't have to go far to other provinces or states. There's even less. So, but in the capital, just one store. You go there and there's no paper, just, I don't know, one ink, and everybody goes and get that one, and then you make some experiments. So that's why it's like a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, you have just this, but on the other one, you can, I mean, you are pushed to create something that maybe no one would have seen before.
Okay. Entonces, yo soy graduado de la Escuela de Arte San Alejandro. Allí estudié artes gráficas. Me especialicé en lo que es grabado tradicional, que como sabemos es muy complejo adquirir el material, ¿no? Y las herramientas para poder hacerlo. Pero tuve la posibilidad, cuando me gradué, de trabajar en un taller de gráfica con mucha tradición, que se llama Taller Experimental de Gráfica de La Habana.
So he graduated from Fine Arts Academy. It's called San Alejandro. It's the most ancient school of art in Cuba, from, you know, before the revolution, from the, I think, 1600s, 1700s. So there you can specialize. I mean, they teach you everything from jewelry, painting, engraving, but then you know, you pick what you want to be a master or your specialty. But the good thing was that after that, he started working at it's like a national graphic workshop in the city, in Havana. And there he became like a master printed in lithography. So even though we are going to show you Mezzotint and Collagraphy, his background is mostly on lithography.
Yes.
Lithography.
Sí, allí estuve trabajando por 4 años en litografía como especialista e impresor. Pero la mezzotinta fue como cuando la conocí. Allí trabajaba un maestro con mucha tradición en la mezzotinta y me atrapó. Es decir, me gustó mucho esta técnica. ¿Puedes decir eso?
Yes. So even though lithography was fun, when he met Mezzotint, it was like love at first sight, and he, you know, he stopped with making lithography is also really hard because you cannot find big stones, and when you find the stones, then you have to brush it yourself to make the surface again, so you can paint again on the stone. So it's complicated. But if you find, you know, somewhere where you can find this, then you can make it work, and it's easier. Well, it's not easier, the technique, but it's easier to find copper than to find stones.
Entonces, esta pieza fue una de las primeras piezas. Bueno, ya había hecho anteriormente a ella mezzotinta. Empecé a hacer mis primeras mezzotintas en el 2007, 2008. Y esta la empecé como en el 2010 a granear y la dejé. Porque la placa era una placa recuperada de una pieza que estaba abandonada. Es decir, y había un trabajo en aguatinta encima de ella.
So I started doing Mezzotint in 2007. This piece is from 2010, and the one on the image is from 2012 because it has Japanese paper on it. But, for example, for getting that cover plate, it was an used cover plate. So he has to like redo the whole surfaces again.
Trabajo con aguatinta.
It has an aguatint work on it.
Entonces esta placa tuve que limpiarla mucho hasta quitarle todo ese trabajo.
So it has to erase every trace of the work before in order to get a new work. on a reuse plate.
Ok, entonces,
Paso.
para mí fue como la primera obra, ¿no? Le dijiste que tenía un...
Sí.
Ok. Esta pieza, bueno, no, la imagen no se ve muy bien.
The image is not as good.
No se ve muy bien, pero es una técnica igual mixta, donde utilicé muchos recursos como dry point, mezzotint, and etching, different process. And en este pedacito que se ve como un sello que dice Made in Cuba, es un chincolé con un papel japonés que le estampé ese Made in Cuba al papel japonés y lo
So
coloqué como
there are
chincolé.
different techniques, but the sign where it says made in Cuba is a thin Japanese paper, and he on top of that stamped the made in Cuba. But the stamp, he made the stamp himself. Well, he has a lot of stamps that he has carved to stamp it. Made in Cuba and other phrases.
Ahora, para mí era muy interesante empezar a hacer obras, retratos de mis amigos, de mis contemporáneos, de la gente que vivía alrededor mío. Y ese fue uno de las primeras inclinaciones conceptuales que fui buscando, ¿no? El retrato como lenguaje expresivo y retratar a toda una sociedad que yo veía, ¿no?
So this is the start of a series of portraits about people that was around him, people that you saw on the street, people that represented the context. Because, for example, this guy who lives still, he's like a Rastafari, but he's also, I don't want to say prostitute, but it's the kind of man that also like tourist women or people seek for in Havana. Like if you go to these places where there are people dancing and you find someone, you don't go there to find a blonde guy. But you will see that. You will see that right on the street. So he was always like a model, you know? And you will see him going around the boulevards, you know, all like, because he was made in Cuba. That was the point. So you will see different portraits of people that are going to become like a symbol of the city.
Bueno, para seguirnos, entonces, pero como para mí fuera muy complicado construir una obra mediante procesos tradicionales, esta pequeña estampa que ven ahí puesta me llevó a reinventarme otras formas de hacer arte y de experimentar con muy poco material construir una obra. Es decir, buscar cómo con solamente una tinta y de un color y algún instrumento fuera del concepto de arte pudiera construir una obra en sí. Y surgió entonces las piezas que vamos a ver a continuación, ¿no?
So that little paper with just one color led to an idea of what can I make with just one ink and stamps. You know, if I didn't have brushes or pens or anything, what can I do? Maybe if I made another stamp and just use it. And that would lead to the pieces that we are going to see now.
Entonces, acá empecé un poco a usar las personas como matrices. Es decir, todos somos diferentes y todos tenemos una característica que nos hace únicos. Entonces, las siluetas de las personas las empecé a sacar como un registro y con ello empecé a construir obras.
Yeah.
¿Sí?
So the starting point was to take different bodies, because different bodies would make different silhouettes and figures. And within the whole, then thinking about how we are going to paint this, and you will see what he did with the stamps.
Sí, bueno, las piezas por supuesto son a tamaño natural, a escala.
Yeah, the pieces are on a natural scale.
Sí, claro, a la forma de la persona, ¿no? Y empecé a jugar con stamp, con textos. En este caso, con textos de Made in Cuba, and, original, Made in Cuba, and, ¿qué más?
No sé,
Vía aérea. And vía aérea.
So vía aérea, which is like airway, because it's not, you have to make like a, well, it's not a poem, but it's made in Cuba and also original, but the topic with vía aérea is that most of these people, not to say everyone, they don't live in Cuba anymore, they all left. And it's a dream, always. Symbolic and also like a literal dream to leave the country. So it's like postcards, but also when you travel and your suitcase gets stamped, no? So first their silhouette flew out, then the people themselves left the country, because these pieces were exhibited in Italy. So first they, as art, left Cuba. But now, nowadays, most of them are not in Cuba anymore.
No.
Paso.
Sí. Hay otros trabajos, ¿no?
Sí, bastante.
Sí, la idea era...
The silhouettes are from nurses, teachers, sport people, and people from the neighborhood also. A pregnant woman.
Esta es la muestra de cómo, de cómo la exhibí en el espacio, ¿no? Las piezas.
Sí.
Sí. Luego, este proceso lo hice un poco más complejo y empecé a hacer retratos de identidad como tal, de pasaporte, de identidad como tal.
Then the technique got a little more complex, and this would be like passport pictures. They are really big in real life, but now, for example, this one says completely via aérea, because it would be for traveling through air. But there would be, for example, people who wanted a specific text, like for their portrait. Sí.
Sí. Y esta es otra también, con esa misma realización. También indagué un poco también en las posibilidades que brindan la fotografía como medio expresivo, y hice algunas series de retratos y de proyectos donde la obra final era un documento de una acción, de un momento que yo hice una obra efímera. Entonces, esta propuesta fue una propuesta de hacer estos peinados. En Cuba se volvieron una moda. Ajá, en un contexto algo, ¿cómo se puede decir?
Marginal.
Marginal. O no, marginal no es una palabra. Bueno, mira cómo tú lo puedes decir en inglés.
So this is a triptych in photography. It will be kind of an ephemeral work because their hair will grow back. But these were, guys on the neighborhood, because Eduardo used to live in a neighborhood that was like a tough neighborhood. So it was kind of a fashion trend back then to get these weird, designs on your hair. You will find the barber that will have the best skill, to do it. But what Eduardo did was to design what he would like to be on the hearse, and that they could pose as a message. So these are question marks and the roads from the travelers, because they, in a way, are kind of lost, even if they know where they are. Like the city is offering nothing, the country is not offering much, and everybody's wonder, like, where am I going to live? Where am I going to go? So, and they were, just happy, like, I'm going to get a free haircut and do whatever design you want. For example, well, he didn't say this, but since we live together in the same neighborhood and everything, he was like, among the people like, oh, the painter who lived in that house, or, there where live the people with the cats, and they paint. And it's not serious at all for them. It wasn't like, oh, is this going to be exposed, or is it? It was like, oh, you want to do this? Let's do it.
Okay. Bueno, esto fue una pequeña muestra, ¿no? De una selección que hice de algunas obras que hice en Cuba en un momento. Ahora vamos a ver qué fue el cambio que tuve en mi proceso creativo estando en México, ya, un poco. En México, inmigrar, bueno, ser un inmigrante, llegar a un nuevo contexto siempre es difícil. Es encontrarte nuevamente como persona y como artista, ¿no? Entonces fue un principio algo complejo, pero fui encontrando espacios para seguir haciendo mi obra y fui buscando otro lenguaje. Ya no como el cubano que vivía dentro de la isla, sino como uno que está observando lo que sucede a la isla, como tal, desde fuera, ¿no?
So leaving Cuba was a struggle. He was kind of reluctant to do it, but we finally decided to. But now, once you're out of Cuba, and you have stuff and things, it's not the same when you go back, and it's not the same you cannot see things the same again. So now the works probably is going to reflect like a vision of an outsider, someone who knows what happened, but it cannot create the same way again. So the language changed and the material changed, and he created a different discourse.
¿Ya? ¿Puedo pasar?
Paso.
Bueno, esta fue la primera obra que hice estando en México, invitado por un taller de grabado, y todavía, como pueden ver, me quedaba esto del retrato, ¿no? De la obra de retrato. Fue una pieza del 2017, en mi primer mes estando en México, como tal.
So this was the first piece he created in Mexico. It took, for him to call workshops, presenting himself to people, until a workshop invited him to do a work and to try something. And when he said he was a lithography, printmaker, master, they asked him for that, like, do a lithography. And there's still some reminiscence of the portrait, but now the water is not as high. Because, there's a famous poem in Cuba that talk about how the island is surrounded by water. So there's no borders. You have to jump to the water, swim, take a boat, something, if you want to try that. But people always talk that you have the water up to this. You're not going to drown, but so now it's like, maybe if you're a pessimist or optimist, you will see the water is going down or it's going up, but there's a space to breathe outside.
Sí, esta técnica para mí fue como reencontrarme con con un nuevo proceso que no conocía. Es una técnica que le dicen litografía, pero se realiza sobre placas de aluminio. ¿Okay? Y se usa silicón para bloquear. Entonces, en México hay una disputa entre dos maestros que tienen dos escuelas, que uno la llama litografía en seco y el otro maestro siligrafía.
Well,
Yeah.
so there's a fight between two different schools in Mexico and two different masters about the lithography, because since stones are hard to get, now they created this other technique that is called siligrafía, when you make the same process as a lithography but on an aluminum plate, and you use silicone and other materials, but to create the same effect as a lithography. And some people say, well, that's not a lithography anymore, and some others says that it will be the same principle.
Right.
You have to choose in which school you want to be.
Entonces, ya estas obras fueron un principio ya de que me vi en un nuevo contexto, ¿no? Y sin materiales, todavía no tenía tampoco el capital monetario para empezar a producir obras. Y la collagrafía la conocí en Cuba, pero nunca la había concebido para hacer mi obra. Nunca la había pensado en mi trabajo.
So now he's in Mexico, but now comes the other part, that you're financially struggling. There are, every material, but you're new. You don't have a job, you're an artist. So that's the time when collagraphy or collagraph came to mind, because he never thought of making collagraphy. No, that's the last resource. So since he could make structures and use recycled paper, recycled cardboard, things that are cheap, sometimes things that you have in your place, he said, well, let's make collagraph and let's try to create something in collagraph that is not the usual thing, or let's maybe restore the Cuban tradition in collagraph that is not at all known in Mexico.
Yeah. Sí, en Cuba la collagrafía tiene una gran fuerza, una gran tradición. ¿Por qué sucede esto? Por lo que habíamos hablado anteriormente. Como es una técnica muy sustentable, muy económica, que no cuesta, es decir, es papel, cartón, diferentes materiales que pueden construir una buena obra. Entonces en Cuba esto es muy apreciado y se ha desarrollado mucho. Algo que no sucede mucho en México. En México la collagrafía es un poco como despreciada y no la valoran a un nivel que valoran a otra obra gráfica.
So in Mexico, it's a really underrated technique. And it's people would say, well, that's what all women do, for example. No, it's something to like from scrapbooks. It's nothing like that. But in Cuba, it's a really like a highly valorated technique, because there are people that have made, walls with this and a very good work. So now, living in Mexico was a sustainable way to make art. And it is a sustainable technique. Sí.
Sí, estas piezas, la serie Islas, surgió con estas estructuras, ¿no? Rudas, como un sistema que encierra. Son estructuras que encierran un espacio tal, ¿no? Esa es como la idea que estoy manejando en ellas, ¿no?
So this series is called Islands, And if you can see, there are closed structures because but this one, for example, is a crossroad. So it's an island, it's a closed space, but there's a puzzle there of where to go, what to do. This one is also another island, if you want to read it like that. And there are different spaces. It's like an island where people can never connect outside of the space. And it's the similar concept as these ones, where you can see maybe classes, spheres, but everybody's on their own island. And if you're in Cuba, you're still close. You're not outside, even if you're on a space bigger than the rest. Paso.
Sí, con esta técnica sucede algo a la hora de concebirla, ¿no? De hacerla. Yo trato de tener el mínimo de material, el mínimo. Lo que pasa con la collagrafía es que muchas veces cuando la empezamos a construir, cuando empezamos a hacerla, como son tantas posibilidades materiales, a veces nos perdemos. Un poco, ¿puedes decir eso?
Sí. So, even though it's a collagraph, this one is called overprotective or overprotection of the same island. But what he was saying is that even if you have now a lot of materials to work on a collagraph, he was trying to do with the less amount. Because sometimes if you have too many things, laces, paper, cardboard, then you don't know where to go. So it's still a collagraph, but with limited materials. Sí.
Sí. Bueno, este ya es un dibujo,
Drawing.
Sí, es un dibujo en díptico, siguiendo jugando, ¿no?, con las mismas ideas de los encierros, de los muros y los puentes, ¿no? Cómo hay dos conceptos o dos ideas que fluyen en el mundo, ¿no? Un poco.
Now you will see a series of drawings. This one is a diptych, and it's also playing similar to the island, but to a wall and like a bridge that goes nowhere or maybe somewhere. But he started to make different drawings. Now from the perspective of one that's outside and can see maybe things from above or things from the distance.
Bueno, no se ve muy bien esta también, pero bueno. Ok. Estas piezas igual son dibujos sobre papel negro y están realizadas con lápices de color plateado y dorado.
I'm sorry that the image is not really good, maybe because of the lighting, but it's another drawing and with golden and silver pens. And it means centrality because it speaks a little bit about not communism, but the way the government in Cuba works.
No, aquí la idea es más bien, ya el concepto ya se me abrió un poco también, porque no estoy tratando un tema específico como lo que sucede políticamente en Cuba, sino estoy dando una idea más amplia de lo que sucede en el mundo, ¿no? Cómo los poderes son centralizados un poco.
Yes, and you can extrapolate that to a bigger picture about how power works as a central force, and everyone is like a beehive, if you want to see it that way.
Y para eso hago este tipo de paneles. Empecé a construir estas piezas mediante un patrón que lo vemos en la naturaleza, en una sociedad tan organizada como la de las abejas, ¿no?
So you can find that pattern in nature, and it reminds you of the bees and how bees works as workers and hard labor, but that pattern is also on the streets, on fences, and you could find it if you really look for it.
Esta es otra más.
This one is called Devotion. See?
Sí. Esta es otra.
And this one is called Segregation.
Sí, aquí, como pueden ver, es el mismo patrón, el mismo sistema, pero que va cambiando nada más la composición, la distribución de lo que sucede, ¿no?
So drawing the same pattern, he will create different situations or sceneries within the pattern. Mm-hmm.
Sí, bueno, Red Block es una obra en mezzotinta. Es una pieza en mezzotinta que intenté sacar un poco la mezzotinta de su forma tradicional, ¿no? La mezzotinta siempre casi se ve en negro o es una obra muy, así como muy tradicional, ¿no? Y entonces intenté sacarla de esa zona de confort y de convertirla en una obra más dinámica.
So this is a series, it's called Red Loop, and it's over there. We'll show you the real pieces after this. But the idea here was to take Mezzotint out of its comfort zone and play it with another way of presenting it. The first thing was to avoid black, because Mezzotint is known for its black velvet tones.
La pieza, van a ver luego que tiene está formada por esta cantidad de piezas, que son 12 piezas, y va teniendo una evolución en el proceso de creación. Es decir, la matriz redonda la llevé a un plano general que da la mezzotinta, ¿no? Y fui trabajando en la misma placa, fui haciendo un proceso de devastamiento, ¿no? Un proceso de devastamiento hasta un final. Es decir, crea una historia en círculo como ¿cómo se le dice? Como un ciclo de bebida, ¿no? Entonces, el color rojo me interesó. Creo que el color es muy importante en el mensaje o la idea que queremos manejar, ¿no? Que queremos transmitir al espectador. Wow. Y el rojo es un color con muchos significados para mí.
So these are 12 pieces. They are just one plate. So this work cannot be done again, because he started with the plane that's spread completely and start working, printing, until it was completely lost, the plate. There's no plate for this one or this one, just one. And it's like an evolution, or a red loop, as we call it. You can talk with this about life or society, of cities, or nothingness, or pregnancy. It's a full circle. See you. Mm-hmm.
Bueno, esta es una de las últimas obras que he hecho. Es una punta seca con collagrafía. Son grabados hechos a dos placas. Una de dry point, ¿no? Y una de collagraphy. Sí, aquí, el discurso sigue siendo el mismo, con estas figuras como abandonadas, aisladas, como en penumbra, ¿no? Aquí. Y se describe la palabra Cuba, ¿no? Como tal, en el texto.
So by now you will see that he has his own language, and he likes to mix techniques. So this is dry point and collagraph, 2 plates, and it's similar to the island project, because these are isolated structures, maybe things or buildings that are left behind. things that are connected at the same time but apart also. And it's a skewer, because now it's really obvious that for us, Cuba has become something that is there, but we are outside of it.
Bueno, este proyecto igual es una pieza en mezzotinta. A esta placa es una placa de 35 centímetros, 35, ¿no? 35 centímetros. Es una mezzotinta que hice una edición muy limitada de solo 10 piezas, pero me gusta de pronto la posibilidad de convertir una matriz o una obra en una obra única. Y para ello hice esta pieza, que son 4 pruebas de autor, y las hice en una obra única.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this work was initially one mezzotint. It's a series of 10 mezzotints, but then he thought, because most people would tell you that graphic arts or mezzotint art that is multiple, it hasn't worked because there's not just one, like a painting. But he thought, how can I create a unique work with multiple? So he made 4 artists, like proof artists, but he signed them on different directions. So only these 4 will make that piece, not the other ones. So even though it's a mezzotint, a print, because of the signatures, these 4 are only one piece. Like this, you cannot make those again.
Sí, la descripción acá, bueno, luego lo vamos a mostrar, ¿no? Pero bueno, sí, esta es una acá de esta pieza. Está acá.
Wow.
Luego la vamos a ver.
Then we can get a closer look, because the images are not the same.
En el tiempo que iba haciendo las collagrafías, empecé también a trabajar en la mezzotinta un poco, como retomando aquellas mezzotintas que en Cuba intenté hacer, pero que me fue muy difícil. En México entonces lo retomé y la empecé a explorar más.
So once he, got more comfortable in Mexico and things started to flow better, he started going back to mezzotint again and tried to do the mezzotints that they were impossible to make in Cuba, because of the materials. And now we could buy copper, inks, the paper that you would like to print, things like that. So mezzotint got back.
Yeah, wow.
Even though he's always saying that he's not doing that again, he's always making a mezzotint. Paso. Well, this one is called Spectre, and the paper, the writing, it says la verdad, which is truth. And it was kind of playing with an idea from Karl Marx that talks about specters coming to visit us. And it's about, well, where's the truth in that?
Y esta pieza, bueno, fue una pieza que preparé específicamente para participar en un evento de mezzotinta que se realiza en Rusia. Y bueno, no tuve mucho tiempo, la tuve que esforzarme. Fue una pieza que trabajé en un mes entero, bastante en ella, porque tiene mucho trabajo. Sí.
This mezzotint, he made it for Russia for a printmaking contest, and he sent it there.
De solamente mezzotinta es este evento.
It's an event just for mezzotint. If you want, we can tell you I don't remember the name, but they have catalogs of really nice mezzotints all over the world.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Entonces, no, ya.
Está la última.
Y bueno, con esta pieza La presentación que tenía preparada es finalizada. Es decir, ya ahí fue una selección que hice muy justa de, no todo, ¿no? Porque no se puede poner todo, pero una selección de estas dos partes, ¿no? De lo que se hizo en Cuba, lo que hice en Cuba y lo que estoy haciendo en México por ahora.
So this was the last print we selected to show you. It's not all his work. It was just a selection because if not, it would take a long time to see different works. But now we would like you to see the prints and ask, now that you are seeing the things, we also brought the tools. And if you want to ask something about the techniques, how it's made.
Si tienen alguna pregunta de lo que hice en Cuba, lo que hice ahora, pues son libres de preguntar si tienen alguna duda.